There's something new every day.
We are live. Welcome to the We Are One podcast. We have Chris Anatra, the quantum businessman, back, and he's got more jokes and more fun. And
Jazz hands and
he's got
all.
more hair too. I think he's definitely got longer. My hair got longer too, just in case y'all didn't notice.
You rocking a mullet? Looks like you're rocking a mullet, Chris.
That's what my boys said. They're like, "Dad, are you having a mullet?" I'm like, "No, I'm just growing my hair out. I'm just like putting it back at the moment." But yeah,
that's Christopher Ray Cyrus.
Yeah,
we are ready.
Check one, check two.
We are ready. Chris, you're up first. We're leading this off. We're talking about Mandella Affects first.
Yeah, by the way, nice to be with you guys, Chad and
back.
Victor and Ken. Awesome.
Yeah.
Enjoying it.
You're a top-rated guest, man. I mean, and now it's 2-0. We're dominating this game.
Well, that's pretty cool. And I hear you're going to be having some very interesting guests on in the future. So
we got some two of the most amazing women I've ever heard talk on YouTube. To be perfectly honest, they're coming. Tess Clark, Mythos Decoded, and Ola Wolney.
Yeah, Ola. Yeah, you just introduced. I knew about Tess Clark, but Ola Wolney I haven't heard of before. So I definitely want to watch some of her stuff. Seems very fascinating.
She's unbelievable, man, with her knowledge. And Tess is like Billy Carson on steroids, man. She's got so much knowledge, it's ridiculous. Chad, did you get a chance to watch her yet at all?
No, but I told Ken, I said, I don't know if that's possible. I don't know if she could have more knowledge than Billy Carson. He told me she definitely does. But you've never seen her either, Chris, right?
No.
You've seen Tess, though. You've seen Tess.
I've watched some of Tess Clark's videos.
That's what we're talking about
the sun and comets and how they electromagnetically connect and can cause super flaring and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, very, very fascinating stuff she talks about.
Can I make a request?
Sure.
All right. You don't have to, but could you switch Chris and me?
I thought you wanted to be
there.
The
you
number
go.
one.
Because he's looking that way. I'm looking that way. Now it makes more sense.
Oh, you're right.
So should I be doing this?
Yeah.
I feel like you guys are gods now. Only me and MJ are the mortal men. We're on the ground.
I feel like we're the Brady Bunch of 4.
There's a lot of comedic jokes.
Look at it like that way.
So Chris, did you say there was some type of Mandela effect about the Moonraker? Is it a new one?
Yeah. So when it comes to Moonraker, that's like kind of like one of the original Mandela effects because, Moonraker, James Bond movie from the 1970s. Roger Moore played James Bond. The villain named Jaws, with the big teeth. And then there's Dolly, of course, right? Dolly falls in love with the villain, Jaws. And the whole premise of the movie is that she falls in love with him and he falls in love with her because of her braces. So, and then what the Mandela effect is for a lot of people, like in the movie, her braces disappeared. So people like, I remember her having braces and, so that's a big Mandela effect for a lot of people. In fact, for some people, that's what got them to actually consider that the Mandela effect was real. But now we've had another change to the timeline, which is really interesting. And that is if you watch the movie now, she has brackets on her teeth. And that was one of the, I sent you a few images to call up. That was one of them. So if you watch the movie, you'll see her with her perfectly straight white teeth with those brackets on them, like kind of before you put braces on. And like that caught me off guard. I'm like, wow, now she doesn't really have braces, but she has these brackets. But if you go online and you look at stills from the movie, she doesn't have it. Her teeth are completely white. So that's an interesting change to a Mandela effect, which I can kind of explain a little bit more what might be happening. And then the other thing that's really interesting too is the villain Jaws. If you look at his forehead's changed. So Ken, I don't know if you could call up that picture of the one.
I'm trying to grab him now.
Okay.
One second. Yep, keep talking. I got you. video file.
Now, is this one that you found or someone brought to your attention, or like how did you come across this one?
So the way I came across this one is that I'm going through the editing process now of another Symphony of Realities. So part of it talks about, this Mandela effect with teeth and how teeth are literally time crystals. Every substance that passes over your teeth are actually recording it. And, what it meant for Dolly to go from braces to no braces. Meanwhile, doing the editing, all of a sudden, it's like you call up the video, you actually watch Moonraker, and I'm like, what? She's got brackets on her teeth now? So that jumped out at me. And then looking at Jaws's forehead, I was like, no, that wasn't there before. So
I'm trying to pull up this file, but or share my screen. It's not. One second.
While you guys were talking, I put Dolly Moonraker into Google, and it shows her with perfect teeth. It shows her with braces and maybe the brackets, but it's all over the board.
Oh, you see braces too?
Yeah. Well, because they're talking about Mandela effects.
Do you think they were photoshopped or they're actual braces?
I'm looking at one right here that looks like it's actual braces on her.
Okay.
Does look it says Mandela effect. Does Dolly have braces in Moonraker?
Right.
So I don't know if that's residual. Is it possible to have residual evidence, Chris?
There you go.
Yeah. So that's part of what it might be. So yeah. So that picture, does Dolly have braces? So you see the brackets now. So now what people are saying is like, oh, you mistook the brackets for braces. Like your mind just translated that into being full braces.
No, I just showed one. There you go. That's it.
Yeah. See if you can find one of Jaws, like a close-up of Jaws with his forehead. I sent you a really good one, but I don't see any on this page. You might have to type in like Jaws Moonraker or something like that.
It's saying the file's invalid to get it, but he's got braces too. This one. How about that?
Well, he's always had them, but if you
braces.
Look at his forehead. Do you see anything on his forehead?
You got a lump.
Yeah, it could be a tumor. I don't know what it is.
Yep.
I've never seen that before.
So I've never seen that either. I have to say, and I see it in all almost all the photos I'm looking at.
All the photos now.
Yeah. So what could that represent? So when I tune into that, it's representing his third eye possibly coming online, or representation of that. So you've got Dolly, who's the feminine, Jaws, who's the traditional masculine villain, kind of dominating person. Is it possible that men will begin to have their third eye turned on, their intuitive abilities turned on? For a lot of women, that's always been easy. Like their intuition has always flowed. For men, maybe not as much. So are these more signs about what's starting to happen? And then one of the things.
Look at this video. I mean, look at this one. Can I get a full screen of this? It's coming. Where'd it go? So this one's got a humongous one, and she's definitely got braces on in this photo.
Yeah. So what's up with
it's definitely very pronounced. It looks like a hematoma.
Hematoma.
Yeah.
Hematoma.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you would have noticed that before, if it's something that's pretty, it's pretty distinctly out there. So just to kind of add one more thing to all of this is that one of the things I do is I tune into like what's going on with the sun, because I feel like the sun has an effect on timelines. When we have these X-class flares, for example, and these M-class flares, like this radiation that hits the Earth, I think of radiation as literally data that's coming in. And I've been tuning into like we're getting upgrades. And could these be signs of certain kinds of upgrades that are coming through to us? We were talking earlier about our eyes and something called cryptochromes in our eyes, which again, it's like I've never heard of cryptochromes in the eyes, but basically it allows a human to see into the electromagnetic field. And I'm like, oh, really? What happens? And it's two genes, CRY1 and CRY2. what happens if both of these, if our cryptochrome genes come online, will we start to see like colors? Like Ken, you were talking about, like when you look at the moon, you
Yeah,
see
I see
colors like,
I definitely see an orange aura on the bottom of it. I can't not see it. Whenever I look at the moon, I see it.
Well,
yeah.
not to change the subject, but Chris, have you been seeing the two planets in the sky that have been aligned? Is it Jupiter and
Yeah, it's Jupiter and
Saturn?
Venus. No, it's
Yeah,
Venus.
Jupiter and Venus?
Yeah,
Jupiter and
Venus is
Venus. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And the whole, like, I was telling these guys before, the whole Cheshire Cat moon about a week or two ago was really freaking me out because I've never seen the moon smile. When it's like a quarter moon, it was always on the side. It was never like a smile. Now, some people are like, it's always smiled. Like, I'm like, well, not my timeline. And then when I would research it, actually there's an article that came out, like people are blaming the Cheshire Cat moon on the Mandela effect. What the article was saying was that basically people like myself never spent enough time looking at the moon. I'm like, I've been on this planet quite a while and I looked at the moon quite, almost all the time whenever there's a clear night. So I would remember, yeah, there you go. That image there, the Cheshire Cat moon. I've never seen that. I don't know about you. Tell me what you guys think about this.
Yeah, no, I've never seen that one either.
Me neither.
Yeah, I've never seen that.
Yeah, what universe are we in now?
I don't know. Going somewhere else.
Yeah, it's definitely crazy. Definitely crazy. Yeah. Yeah. That would stick out. That would definitely stick out. If I saw that, it would be odd. It would stick out. Like that's not normal.
Now, these changes that are being made, Chris, you always say that they're signs maybe from the creator or somebody trying to tell us something, just like you said before, right? Like men, like the hematoma, maybe it's men's third eye opening. But I always wondered why would they choose something so abstruse as a character in Moonraker to tell us?
Yeah, all these, exactly. Like, how else are they going to tell us, right? But the movie's soft disclosure, I think, is one of the big ways we're being told about what reality actually is. But most people, it's just a movie. That's just science fiction. That can't possibly be real, blah, blah, blah. But I believe that, like, that's part of, like, how we're supposed to begin to awaken. We get the clues, like, through soft disclosure in the movies. And then you get a movie that's a Mandela effect, and then you have a Mandela effect on top of a Mandela effect. Mm-hmm. And if that doesn't start to wake you up, I don't know what will. So, yes, it's all part of, like, I feel this awakening process that we're going through. And then when you tune into it, like, what could this possibly mean? And I've been doing that too with other Mandela effects that are kind of like crazy way out there. And when you start to tune into them, it's like, oh, that's what they're trying to say. And it's funny, Jason at Archaics, last week, he had a video where they were talking about Mandela effects. And I listened to it.
He had a Discord. It was really good, actually.
It was really good. And I don't think, like, even Jason was like, he had no idea about how many Mandela effects there were.
Right. Yep.
But then, like, when you start to tune into them, like the Star Wars one about Luke, I am your father versus no, I am your father, like what that actually means and how that's related to the Anunnaki and all that. Then you start to get like to a whole other level of perception about what's going on. Mm-hmm. And that's what I want to start doing too. Like, I want to start like creating videos where I'm tuning into a specific Mandela effect, so people can at least be like, oh, I wonder if that's possible. Is Anunnaki Skywalker or Anakin Skywalker, was that part of like a communication to us? And the word no, right? I think we talked about this before, like no. N-O, or is it K-N-O-W? It's the same frequency.
Have you tried to look at the Akashic records to see what it says?
Yeah, well, that's kind of what I do.
That's what you're getting at.
Yeah. Although a lot of that isn't quite considered the Akashic records. It's like it's part of the whole supercomputer, Tom Campbell's large consciousness system, like tuning into other parts of that. Like if you were to like use that kind of terminology. So the Akash can tell you like things about people's past, the planet's past, land, buildings, all that kind of stuff. There's records for. Your records are in your DNA. So, all those types of things. So, and then there's another level to it as well, to see like, I think like when in that Discord thing that Jason did, he was talking about like why would the AI system, AIX, like even allow this to happen? He's like, there must be a benefactor out there.
Of putting it. Yep.
Yeah. So like I describe it as a chess game. You've got the benefactor on one end giving us clues, and the AIX, demiurge, whatever you want to call it, trying to like maneuver us in another way. And it's like the chess game going back and forth. So who's going to help people wake up? So, but I thought it was really cool that he was really starting to like get it in his own way. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, he didn't hardly know any of them.
But I have a question from MJ, because I think this is a question he would ask. But the question is, okay, so something's trying to wake us up, and many of us are waking up, but what are we going to do about it?
Yeah, what are we going to do? What are you going to do about it?
Yeah, just like Sylvester Stallone would say in any movie.
Hey, yo.
Yeah, so like if I were to answer that question, I would say you can't unsee it, like you can't unknow it. So once you begin to realize that the 3D reality that we've been born into, that we've been kind of hypnotized to believe is real because of our 5 senses, giving us data all the time, through our eyes and, sound and smell and touch and all that. Like when you begin to like go to another level, and then to begin to realize that, let's say in a way we're dreaming, can the dreamer change the dream? Can the observer effect, double slit experiment, can the observer change the observed? Can we begin to manipulate in our own way for ourselves reality so that we can like go to another level of abundance?
Now you're asking Ken questions. You went from MJ to Ken.
Yeah, but I got a question for me then.
Okay.
Yeah, are you talking about on an individual level, a collective level? And let's suppose somebody can do it on an individual level. Should that be morally acceptable? That somebody could just change their reality, go off and enjoy life or be how they are, and then the collective suffers? Or is it everybody has to do it collectively for us to see a change?
It's going to be a 99 monkey effect, so that there's always a few that begin to start and they start to change their reality. Their light starts to really shine. That affects others. So it's like the ocean, all the boats kind of rise up when the tide comes in. It's like that kind of a thing. So it's eventually going to spread to everybody. And some are going to resist it. Some are going to be like, I like my reality just the way it is.
I think you got about 75% of those 99 monkeys. So 75 monkeys are just not interested in that. They enjoy the comfort of, for lack of a better term, the abused partner in their relationship. They're just comfortable doing it, and they're not willing to shake up what they have going on. And in that aspect, it's really not anybody's responsibility to seek the truth and the knowledge, but those that are seeking. I think that's part of the that's part of the exercise, Chad, is that there's certain things we can control, and it's up to you to push your limits.
Yeah, but it always I guess it never ceases to surprise me how many people say Mandela effects aren't real. That's just false memory. Like they don't see anything. Like they're so closed off to something.
Yep, that's the 75 monkey effect.
Yeah, I don't think that they could, like, again, they could be an NPC type, and who knows? Maybe they'll never be effective. We'll never be able to reach those type of people.
All right, so let me jump in here because I've been itching to get your
Chad's already
feedback
asked enough questions for you, MJ. I think you're done, man. I think you're no. I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
use up all your time, MJ.
Chad's already asked all the questions for you.
I normally don't ask the NPC questions, but I've been thinking a little bit more about that concept. But I guess the question is, because I think there's a lot of energy that could be potentially spent on trying to do something that is not something that can happen externally. Like just how, Chris, you mentioned, like like an NPC could potentially wake up, but that's their own internal thing. There's a timing thing with that. That isn't maybe they can be inspired or whatever, but there's a level of self actualization that happens for that to happen. You can't do it from the outside. But so the majority of this awakening that could potentially happen for NPCs is going to be a more timing internal thing. So I guess what I'm getting at is the effort in trying to awaken NPCs something that those that have already reached a certain level of awareness should not. They should focus on something else now. And then maybe their collective example could be more of an influence than individually trying to get their point across or debate or win from a logical standpoint. Because a lot of this metaphysical stuff and mystical, spiritual stuff is not, quote unquote logical, right? You're talking about stuff that is not measurable, for the most part. So it's something they got to experience.
It may not be able to be replicated.
What's that?
It may not be able to be replicated either. I mean, from one person to the next.
Yeah, well, but I think the core parts of it definitely. I mean, it's just because it's already happening, and from my standpoint, it's just amplifying that connection that's already there. But I'm thinking just more of what we spend our time trying to influence, where instead of trying to awaken the NPCs are following, or if they're sheep, if you will, they're being influenced, they're following certain trends or whatever. Then would our energy be better utilized?
Exploring it.
Well, instead of trying to awaken them, go to that point of influence and try to become that shepherd that they follow. And instead of trying to awake the sheep, if they're going to follow, let's give them a better example of something to follow.
Yeah, I think sometimes in that example, the shepherds aren't always cattle calling, right? They're not always like, hey, come over here, hey, yo, pay attention. Sometimes they just have to lead by example, and that's kind of the best way to herd up the cattle is by showing them and having some of those sheep follow and make the sheep round into shape by other sheeps, right? I mean, it's not just you're not just gonna stand on a podium and go, hey, I need all y'all sheep to just come over here and see what's going on. I think a lot of that happens when you take the initiative and the action to lead. You know what I mean? Like then other sheep follow, and then they kind of fall in line, because they're, in essence, if they're NPCs, then they're already being programmed. So you kind of have to reprogram them. And the only way to reprogram is to have them change their behavior by following other sheep that are not NPCs.
Yeah, and just to add to that, in the original Matrix movie, like Morpheus told Neo that these people are not ready to be unplugged from the Matrix. Like, don't unplug anyone before they're ready, because you'll do more harm. And in that movie, They Live, where the guy puts on the glasses and he starts to see the reality of what's going on around him, he tries to put the glasses on his friend. And what happens? The friend won't put them on. They have like it's like the longest fight, right? A 10-minute fight where the friend won't put on the glass. He doesn't want to see reality.
That's the movie with Rowdy Piper.
Yeah.
That was a great movie. And I think that was like what, like 87, 88, something around there.
Yeah.
That movie. But that movie was a great truth drop. Yeah, good point, Chris. Chris, you talked about before the show, you mentioned something about Looney Tunes. You said, I think a lot of people know about that Mandela Effect, where it goes from Looney Tunes, TOONS, to TUNES. I don't know if there's anything more you wanted to say about the previous subject, but I was curious to know, you said there's a hidden meaning behind that, and I was curious to know what that hidden meaning is.
Yeah, so that's I'm going to create a video about this to kind of go into more detail, but that's a famous one, because a lot of us remember tunes, like cartoons, TOONS,
makes
and
sense.
It's always been TUNES. Like, what are they singing? Like, it doesn't really make any sense. So tuning into that one, I was getting the number 333, which if you think about the concept of timelines, right now we are in we've been doing a Groundhog Day, so to speak, of this lifetime. We're on, what I tune into is that we're on lifetime number 333. So our divine selves have been working on kind of like perfecting things for us for this last final 3 + 3 + 3 = 9, which is a number of completion. It's a number before 10. Like 9 is a very important number. I think even Tesla talks about 369. There's a lot of things that go into that. So all these others were the dress rehearsal, so to speak. Now it's showtime. So da 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 da. So a lot of us remember that's how the Looney Tunes song goes. And then the Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck part of it would go, overture, curtain lights, this is it, we'll hit the heights, and oh, what heights we'll hit, on with the show, this is it. So we're like right now, we're literally in showtime. And if you take the word tune, Toon, it could mean a cartoon. A tune could also represent a character in a video game. If you take the word tunes, Tunes, that means to perfect something, like someone that tunes an instrument. He tuned my piano and now it plays perfectly. It wasn't tuned before, but now it's tuned. So you take that kind of a concept, or I've finally tuned in my radio exactly to 101.3. So instead of getting static and everything, now I'm right on the station, just the way it should be. So you reach into that part of it. And then there's another part of it about, well, these lives have been pretty loony for us, right? And then what is a loon? So a loon, people think of going crazy in the moon, like a lunatic. But literally, Daffy Duck is a black duck who's a loon, Loon. And loons are, they're usually like in northern New York State and in Canada. They only come out at night and they have a beautiful, very distinct sound of the loon. Once you hear a loon, you can't unhear it. It's amazing. And then when I tune into that, I'm like, what kind of light language does the loon speak? And the loon speaks awakening codes. The loon speaks abundance codes. So there's also a lot of interesting things about the loon. A lot of people don't realize that Daffy Duck is modeled after one of these black ducks. So that's an example of like tuning in and getting like, oh, deja vu. Like, what's deja vu? Oh, we're remembering part of the dress rehearsal. Let's say timeline number 321, it happened just the same way, and there's a glitch in the matrix, and we remember that. So dress rehearsal, it's showtime, this is it. And yeah, how like the words to the song and like all that comes together. So that's another example of the kind of things I'm working on.
I like that Looney Tune example where this world is very loony and we're a bunch of loony ducks, and it's going to try to tune us in. The benefactor is trying to tune our consciousness and our awakening to what's really going on. So let me ask you this, Chris. Do you feel like this is an overlay world? Do you feel like there's some kind of an overlay going on? Like there's a physical realm that's been hijacked a little bit, and like these Mandela effects are highlighting the fact that like we have been kind of like pushed out of whack. Is that something that you consider?
Well, I'm not 100% sure, but I feel that we're literally a matrix within a matrix, so to speak. Yeah, so I'm not sure about the overlay concept, but I do talk about something called timeline overlays, which is another interesting thing. Like, for example, 1700s and 1800s, we have evidence of the Tartarian Empire, especially with their grand buildings, throughout the United States. But does that make sense that you had Tartarians living side by side with American Indians living in teepees with buffalo? Like, does that make sense? Or was some kind of big timeline editing event happened in the 1700s and 1800s? And did like the Egyptians know about this? And they knew that in places like the Grand Canyon, they could put artifacts that could be immune to a timeline editing event, where looks like some buildings may have melted. You might have seen like people that look into Tartaria, and they show like melted buildings and like what could cause that, and mud floods and blah blah blah. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff to like try to like wrap your mind around.
Yeah. So if we could say that the universe may not locally be real, as we're talking about the Nobel Prize for Physics, is it possible that history is not locally real as well?
Yeah,
it's been overlaid on top of each other, and the timetables don't exactly mesh up for what we're able to look at, to observe.
Yeah. By the way, have you guys heard about this, about the Nobel Prize of 2022 in physics?
No, I have not heard of it, but I'm dying to hear what you have to say about it.
Yeah. So to me, this is like groundbreaking. I don't know if Tom Campbell's talked about it yet, but he should, because a lot of the things he talks about comes to life with what's been proven by these 3 scientists that actually wound up sharing the Nobel Prize. Hold on, I have their some information about them. So 3 physicists, John Clauser, Elaine Asbeck, and Anton Zellinger, they equally split the 2022 Nobel Prize in Physics for experiments with entangled photons, establishing the violation of Bell inequalities. And Bell was someone that had all these predictions, I think in the 60s and 70s, about how quantum entanglement worked. Establishing the violation of Bell inequalities and pioneering quantum information science. To summarize, the universe is not locally real. And I don't know why this hasn't caught more attention, because to me, it's really amazing that it basically shows that Einstein and his whole thought about the universe is physically real and the speed of light is a constant of 186,000 miles per second, and nothing can travel faster than the speed of light, and blah, 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 was incorrect. Is incorrect. Like there's no limits to the way our reality works. And when you go through the information, it begins to lend light to concepts like the large consciousness system that Tom Campbell talks about. It starts to like make you aware that, I'll just describe this experience that we have as like in a way that we're dreaming. Like we're dreaming this, we're literally dreaming. This is a lucid dream that we're kind of trapped in because we believe this is the only reality. And when we dream at night, oh, that was just a dream. That's not real. But I think a lot of people, I don't know about you guys, like I'll let you answer this yourselves, but like for me, like my dreams lately have been like it was always hard for me to remember my dreams, and now it's getting easier and they're becoming more lucid. Like, am I the only one that's experiencing that?
Anyone?
What movie is that from?
Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Yep.
Anyone?
Oh.
Can you guys read what this says? In the middle, I tried to highlight it, but it's small. It says, what this kind of means is the phrase of, do you believe the moon is really there when you're not looking at it? That's what that was saying, that article. And that's a physics article. And I think, MJ, you can vouch for the fact that I've been saying and arguing with you for a while that I thought that was a definite possibility. Again, we don't know anything. I'm just a dude trying to do research with everybody else and find out what resonates. But like that's resonating with me for a long time. Like, is stuff there when you don't look at it? If it's being rendered as we look at it, is history rendered as we look at it? That's my perception.
I have a possible answer to that. So, because that's a question that I ask. So if you're not looking at the moon, if you're a player character, so to speak, and you're rendering your reality in front of you, almost like if you're playing Grand Theft Auto, let's say there's 500 people playing Grand Theft Auto and they're all the different parts of the map. Does it have to generate the map for when there's nobody there? Or is it only when a player like starts to get into that area of the map or intersecting with another player's bubble of reality, then they both come alive together? So the concept of the moon, right? What about the moon? Because it's a good question. So, and I actually addressed this in the video I'm going to be posting, hopefully the end of next week. But basically, when I tune into it, I would say that the moon is there even when you're not looking at it. Why? Because the moon, technically, no matter how you want to look at it, is a player character in our reality. Just like me and you and Chad and everybody that's watching this show, like, even though we're not observing each other all the time, we're still like, our reality is true. Like we're still like observing what we're
But
observing.
do they overlap? Do they overlap? So we're not saying the moon doesn't exist, or that article is not saying it doesn't exist when you're not looking at it. Is it physically rendered when you look at it? It doesn't mean it doesn't exist when you're not looking at it. It just means is it physically there for other people to consciously observe if they're not looking at it?
Yeah, but I was just going to say that Tom Campbell says that consciousness is the only thing that's real, and everything else is virtual. So the moon is the moon is virtual, just like everything else. So I believe it's programmed into the reality to be in that place, and there's no need to show a data stream of it until a player character or an avatar like us looks at it, and then it becomes part of our data stream. But just because if nobody's focused on it, it's in nobody's data stream. But I still think that it's programmed to be in a certain spot. So if nobody in the world was to look at the moon, and then everybody looked at it, maybe 3 hours later, it would be going along this trajectory that can be measured out. It's not just doesn't randomly show up somewhere else. So I do think things are programmed. Once they're programmed, they're generally going to be in the same spot. There's going to be a very probabilistic. I would say it would be very probabilistic that things remain where they are or on a certain trajectory, because otherwise the reality would be too nebulous.
The old Adam adage of if a tree falls in the forest and nobody hears it, does the tree fall? Whereas my question is the tree even there? I mean, if we don't render it.
Yeah. I mean, the tree probably did fall and it's probably on the ground. And then when someone goes over, they see a tree on the ground. But if nobody ever sees anything, does it really exist? There's no point in anything existing.
It wouldn't need to exist
unless everything is here for us, for our evolution. So whether a tree is up or fell or something like that doesn't change our evolution at all. So it
does put the clues out there for us to awaken to see how it's working, or at least give us some context.
Well, what do you mean by that?
Well, I think it's like Schrodinger's cat. I mean, it's the thought experiment that the cat's either alive or dead, but it's probably alive and dead at the same time until someone observes it. So the tree falling in the forest is an old adage, just to make you, it's a thought experiment. It's to make you think of the possibilities are not one or two, but there's multiple possibilities of the same thing.
Yeah. Well, I think it's the Schrodinger's cat is very similar to MJ. If you see, you could see an awake MJ or a sleeping MJ. Which one is happening at the moment? It's what's being rendered. I see in the middle right now with MJ. He's kind of like getting ready.
He's got a hell of a memory, because he don't talk for a minute and then all of a sudden he'll just go. I know you got something to say, MJ. What you got for us?
No. I'll let you guys finish.
Yes. So I'll just add to the conversation. So like when I for me, the moon is a player character. So it's fine if you think, but the example of the tree is really good, because when you go into that part of the forest that no other player character has been, and you observe a fallen tree, is that because the Matrix has calculated that this tree would have fallen at this particular time, and so it's going to put a fallen tree there for a player character to observe? So that's part of like the probabilities and so forth of like this matrix that we're in, and it's clues about how it works.
But Tom Campbell talks about this, but our bodies are virtual too. So
yeah,
if you never, all of us, right? If we've never had surgery, our bodies have never been opened, and we live and die for 40, 50, 60 years, go to our grave, nobody's ever seen our organs.
It's true.
Well, according to what Tom says, an organ never needs to be rendered.
Mm-hmm.
Technically, it doesn't really even exist until you see it.
Until we think about what we need it for, and then it exists.
Yeah.
No, I have trouble with that too, because Tom's saying, well, this, you don't really have, if you cut open your head, you'll see your brain. But otherwise, it's just
Yeah.
like
You
you
don't
don't.
know.
When you play a video game, do you need to see the brain and organs of a character in Grand Theft Auto? No. And they're still doing everything they're doing. You don't see their muscles. You don't see anything. You just see their skin. So, but I always say to myself, but then, I mean, obviously I can't go around eating pizza all day because then I'll get fat and I'm like, all my biomarkers will go out of whack. Why is that? If everything's virtual, I should be able to eat whatever I want.
Because you believe that.
Because you believe that. Possibly.
Yeah, the placebo effect.
Likely. Harder
Yeah.
to change the belief. Harder to change the belief. Granted, I'm not saying that you can do that, but if you're raised in a family that eats pizza and cupcakes and donuts all day long, and everybody lives to be 90, then guess what, Chad? It's not just genetics. I mean, it ain't just genetics. You know what I'm saying? Like they believe that they're okay with that.
What did Morpheus say in The Matrix? Right? He said he's starting to believe. Remember that?
I don't know. Are you starting to believe, Neo? You may not believe you're the one.
I believe Chris could be the
I've been
one.
believing in you for a hot second, but you just keep doubting it.
No, I think Chris has the gift of Neo. He can see beyond the Matrix. And I mean, I could see Chris just lifting his hands up and the bullets coming.
No.
I was watching that scene again with the Merovingian?
Yeah, that's a good scene. Yeah.
Where he says, that's a nice trick.
Mm-hmm. It's all a trick.
Good party trick, yeah. So, Chris, do you have any other, Mandela Effect news for us? Anything else that you mentioned? Something I want to go back to. You said the teeth. The teeth are like, what did you say? They're like time.
They're
crystals?
literally time crystals.
Does that mean everything you eat, your body? No. What does that mean for eating?
Well, it means that if you're time travelers that are doing more time travel than they should be, sometimes have problems with their teeth. Because that's an effect of changing. When you change time, your teeth get all confused. So, and I've heard rumors, people in the military project, blah, 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 when they leave those projects, they have all kinds of issues in their mouth and their teeth and so forth. But yeah, so the concept is that your teeth are literally recording everything that passes over them. So there's a record in your teeth. And your teeth are part of your throat chakra.
That's why they call them dental records.
That's interesting.
And they lay down roots.
Okay. My mom did say that you have a good sense of humor, Ken. So I applaud you for your efforts.
I appreciate her laughing. She laughs at them. That's fantastic.
And you've got the best backgrounds of anybody too.
This is my house, man. Look at this. It's beautiful. That's a real picture, man. This is no Mandela effect. And behind right there, you can see.
So
you can't see Jupiter and Saturn and Uranus.
I got a quick question to just looking at this. So we're on timeline. Oh, are you saying we're on timeline 333?
That's what I'm tuning into. Yes.
So does timeline 332 exist as well? And do we shift between them? And are we experiencing more of return into this frequency, or how do you see that? The different parallels going on.
Yeah. See, that's a good question. That's actually a really good question, because it lends into the concept in the future that as we become more aware of these other timelines, and I think we will, we're going to start to get confused about people. I think I might have mentioned this before, but in another timeline, Chad could have chosen a whole other direction for his life. Ken, Victor, you guys could have all chosen other whatever. It could have been different. And then people will start remembering you for things that you've done that you would say, I've never done that before.
Other timelines.
Yeah. Like Ken, you could have been a brain surgeon in another thing, Dr. Ken, or have a TV show, Dr. Ken or something. And they'll be like, I watched you on TV every afternoon. And you'll be like, I don't know what you're talking about. So I believe that as we're increasing our awareness of what this reality is, like in the future, not that far into the future, like I definitely within years, we're going to start to get more of that awareness, including we kind of already get that with Mandela effects. So if you're starting to see Mandela effects, you're already like on the path to be able to see more things and timelines from other people. It's going to get crazy. It's going to get crazy out there, kids.
Shit, it's already crazy.
Yeah,
It's loony. You can get really loony.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's because that's something I've been playing around with that concept as well. So that's a cool way to describe it.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you a question that's a little off topic, but I interviewed Jordan from the Waters Above channel. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, Chris.
No.
He talks a lot about gematria, talks about numerology, and he uses gematria and numerology to predict the future, maybe world events or sports matches, things like that. Do you have any familiarity with gematria and numerology, or do you believe it can predict the future? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't really know that much about gematria, but I know everything is math, like the way this binary system that we're in, how everything works together. Math is literally the backbone to it. Sacred geometry is the backbone to it. So it's probably possible you could probably tap into that.
Yeah, it's interesting because you mentioned Nikola Tesla says you could know the whole universe if you know the power of 3, 6, and 9. And that's actually one of the videos I was working on to put out this week. Just a short video on talk, because people hear about it, but they don't know much about 3, 6, and 9.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. I will definitely watch that video.
Yeah. And that number probably relates to all of us. Like for me, my birthday's on the 3rd, but one of us probably has a 3, 6, and 9 somewhere going on. Even our names, our birth dates, they're all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
So, and actually, he has a course. I was thinking about even maybe taking the course to learn, because that's been an interest of mine, numerology and gematria. Because I saw with the birth, like I talked with Ken about this, about your life path number, and I see there's a lot of accuracy in it. Yeah, Ken is actually a 7, just like me, and I know that because my best friend's a 7, and Ken's birthday is the exact same as my best friend. Like literally the same year as well.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah. But they're nothing alike, though. Yeah.
I'm funny. That's what he was telling me.
They're both white men about 5'9". That's about it.
I'll take it. Getting older and getting shorter. So yeah, that was a Mandela effect. I'm actually not anymore. Maybe you're misremembering that.
What height are you actually?
Probably like 5'8".
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. You must have had some high tops on.
I wear some high shoes when I go to conferences. I think it helps people. It helps me stand out for sure.
And MJ, what height are you?
5'11", some change.
Nice. Okay. That's cool.
Some
Okay, we got
change.
Chris is pretty tall. How tall are you,
Chris?
Chris?
I would say Chris, you're like
6'2".
He's about 6'1.5", 6'2", right?
Yeah, just under 6'2". Yeah.
Yeah.
Depends if I put my back straight or not.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And if you have if you go Aphrodite, you're like 6'7".
Oh yeah, he put the hair up.
Oh shit.
So real quick before y'all switch gears. So going back to the Looney Tunes, right? And you mentioned the difference between the two. So I guess my question is, do you feel that there is a conscious manipulation that they're encoding some information for us to pick up on, or is this something we're not supposed to see, or like is there a reason behind what they're doing, and who is they? Well, have you thought through that part of it?
Yeah, so I definitely feel that. I mean, just think about Mandela effects. If we didn't have Mandela effects, like that's a big, for people when they're ready, that's a big eye opener. So I believe that there is, like, a chess game going on, call it that, different chess moves happening, and Mandela effects are chess moves, and then there's counter chess moves to, there could be a positive Mandela effect, and then the other player makes, I'm going to make a negative, to kind of block the move you just made. So it's almost like there's a game going on. And yeah, is there a person or a group, or however you want to look at it, that would be considered the benefactor that wants us to awaken? And then there is the other part of it related to the demiurge and archons and all that kind of stuff, the keepers of the matrix. that don't want us to awaken. You're just misremembering, go back to sleep, silly human. This can't be true. So, and that's really what the effect of, you could kind of see, like, would the system, if it wants to keep us sleeping, would it even allow Mandela effects? Like, of course not. So to me, like, the way I logically look at it, that's the way I see it.
But I just want to give some input to it, because it could be that the system could easily wake us up. I mean, the system could actually control all our behavior. Tom Campbell said that when the LCS first created avatars, people like us, souls, we were acting terribly. And it said, hey, let me take control of the situation and I'll make them all good, and then everything will be good. And they realized, if you don't give them free will, might as well just create NPCs and automatons. There's no evolution going on here. It has to happen organically, from the being level. So I believe that the benefactor that Chris talked about is doing this in a very subtle way, because it can't interfere with our free will. And it would be too much if you put the writing in the sky, if we had aliens come down to the White House and say, look, this is how it is, and this is what's really going on, and you have to change. That would just be really overriding our free will. So it's just very subtle.
I think the subtle changes also, though, are making us a better humanity. I mean, it happens little by little, one by one, you wake up, or people wake up. But I mean, you're going back to the example of, are the Mandela effects positive things? I think it makes you question the reality, obviously, but what it does for me personally is it validates that this is not a rat race. This isn't a bunch of wild wolves going at it, right? I mean, you're waking up, so you're using more of your mental state. You're using more of your thought process, your physical and philosophical qualities that you have, and it's making you take a step back. And for me, it's definitely mellowing me out as much as I can get to step back and say, listen, this isn't a hell realm. This isn't a soul negative place. And if you take a step back and look at it like that, I think it eventually makes humanity kind of a more empathetic and just a more philosophical place to be.
Yeah, but and you also have to say, of these Mandela effects, are they overall good or are they overall worse for humanity? And I would say, like Chris said, especially for the changes in our body, we talked about that on a show. They're all good.
I think they're all good. I mean, how could you? What would be an example? Does anybody have one of a negative Mandela effect that, like, you're like, well, that one shouldn't be there, like for negative reasons? Chris, what do you have?
I don't see any evil ones, but I definitely think that the movie lines, the songs, they're worse. I do.
Yeah, but they're waking you up to. I mean, when you're ready, they are giving you examples of this reality is not what you think it is. It's not. Go to school, eat whatever crap you want, work 9 to 5, be 80 years old, die and have regret. Like, it's not going that direction, especially for me. Like, how could that be a negative consequence for people? I don't see it.
I'll give you an example of a negative one in a chess game that's going on is the Tulsa race riots of the 1920s from Tulsa, Oklahoma. Complete Mandela effect for me. Actually, Tom Hanks did an interview and he was like, I studied Black history. Like, how come the Tulsa race riots were never included? And blah, blah, blah. And it's because they weren't in our timeline, but it was one of the worst times. There was a community a Black community in Tulsa, Oklahoma that was thriving. And of course, the white people in the area, certain ones didn't like that. So they created the race riots. There were like 300 people like critically injured. I think there was almost 100 people that were killed. So to me, that was like a chess move to cause division between the races. And then another, like maybe a possible counter chess move had to do with this hit Disney Broadway show I never heard of called Aida. And I actually created a movie about it. And it has to do with ancient Egypt. And it has to do with the love between, we'll call him a white Egyptian general and a Black Nubian slave named Aida. And they fall in love. And that's a whole other story. And that kind of helped for like a newer generation. That kind of helped like loosen things up to make it so that there's like less less friction. Of course, now it doesn't seem that way, but so like some of these Mandela effects, I don't see them all being like positive, but to have like another reason for them, like the big virus plague of the 1958 virus, people were wearing masks. 1969 during Woodstock, there was like a big virus outbreak that happened, and like I never heard about these things before. And of course, Woodstock, they weren't wearing masks or anything, but you can see pictures like in the late 50s of like secretaries at their desks wearing masks. And I said to my mom, who was like a teenager, well, she's probably like 18 or so, do you remember that? Like, were people wearing masks and the big virus outbreak that happened in the United States? And she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. So
yeah, that could definitely be a Mandela effect that I saw instantly. Well, probably about 3 months into CO19, they were talking about the Spanish flu, and they said that basically it was documented that all the people were wearing masks in the U.S. and that a lot of the deaths were actually caused by the masks, bacterial infections.
yeah.
And so I don't know. I had never heard of that before. I looked into it, or whatever came to my awareness. But I don't know if that was a legitimate thing that actually happened in the 1900s for the Spanish flu, or if that was just something that was inserted to have us look and go, hey, listen, you're being manipulated.
Yes.
Pay attention. I think that's definitely something that's a possibility.
Yeah, like people trying to get on the trolley in 1918 with the Spanish flu, and they're not allowed to get on because they're not wearing a mask. So there are pictures, and I never saw pictures of people wearing.
Yeah, I've never seen anybody wear a mask in history ever, and I'm a history.
No.
I
Me
used to
too.
love history.
Me too. So Mandela effects are not just that situations change or logos, but like brand
Literal
new
insertions.
Yeah, like brand new versions of history appear. Just what you were saying before about the race riots is similar to the story you said about, what was it, World War II, where was it the Germans are attacking America? They keep attacking America when you go back and look at the history books.
They took a U-boat into New York Harbor.
Well, and the Hindenburg. I mean, do you think this is a philosophical question, I guess, but do you think that maybe there was something coming as far as hot air balloons or hot air travel, and maybe they inserted that timeline to the incident that happened where it was death, now there's not, or maybe it's trying to steer us into doing that again. I don't know. Just seems like that's another weird one, because you brought that up last time where they interjected where all the people died and all of a sudden now nobody died, right? Or like six people or whatever, something like that.
Two-thirds of the people live, the 62 survivors.
It's crazy.
97. Yeah. That was never.
They're hundreds of feet in the air and the thing catches on fire and they plummet to the ground, but only a third perish. That's insane.
Yeah, there's a whole movie about it too. I think it came out in 2010 about the Hindenburg, and it's a love story. It's kind of like Titanic, and the two people they live. And
I hope it doesn't crash.
There's like a dog on the thing, and the dog lives too, and like it's that whole movie is new in my reality. I never heard
of that at all.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Craziness.
What's the name of that movie?
The Hindenburg. I don't know. I'd have to look it up.
That's original.
It has a generic name like that.
It should be in the theaters. Let DiCaprio get in there again and do his thing.
Yeah, in one of my Symphony of Realities videos, I did like an insert and played like a minute of that movie, which was like, yeah, very interesting. I'd never heard of it before.
There should be a Mandela Effect website that everybody knows, and everybody could just go there, and you could search by keyword, and you can just see all the Mandela effects, and they list them out by the year and the month. That would be awesome if we could have something like that.
Yeah, though sometimes that gets tricky because like I was talking to somebody a couple months ago, and like for me, one of the original ones was King Tut having the cobra and now the vulture on his headdress. And someone just 2 months ago, it just happened in their reality. Like, I never heard about this before. And I'm like, I heard about this in 2017. So it just depends. Like it'd be a tricky thing to do, but yeah.
Can y'all see this? It says, I just Googled this real quick, and 800-foot long airship launched in Germany in 1936, had a maximum speed of 84 miles an hour. It went 80 miles an hour at cruising speed. That's insanity in the air. I didn't see a hot air balloon go that fast. The Goodyear blimp doesn't go that fast.
It had a propulsion system, but they said
it's still pretty quick. Especially when you have air, the air currents going, you're not flying away from that thing, or into air at 80 miles an hour. That's pretty fast.
Yeah, Berlin to New York was about 2.5 days in a 5-star hotel. That's what the Hindenburg was considered.
5-star hotel.
A floating 5-star hotel with a cigar bar and blah blah blah, a piano bar, and
But how big could that little, just a little cabin?
well, it had 30,
That looked like it. It looks pretty big.
something crew, and it would normally carry about 70 passengers. So enough for 70 passengers to have their own quarters, their own bathrooms, restaurant.
I would have loved to see it. I gotta do some research on that myself.
And people loved it. They loved the experience.
So why did those balloons? Why did they all
Nice
stop?
surprising facts.
Was it just because of that?
Yeah, because, and you know why? This is actually a project that I'm working on, because myself and about 5 other people were creating a business plan related to an airship company, to primarily for cargo, like in food distribution, but also like obviously for people, for travel as well. And like, why did it stop? Because there's lots of different reasons. One of the reasons is that airships are, the way the reality works, they're the one step before we adapt to anti-gravity. Like we go from airships and then anti-gravity technology. These are things that like the Tartarians had for a long time, way back from the times of Atlantis. None of this stuff is new. None of it is new. So yeah, so is it possible that airships can solve problems that, like these cargo containers, ocean liners carrying all these cargo containers, being able to transport cargo from like island to island, or landlocked areas? There's landlocked areas in Canada that have to have the logging truck, the ice road trucks go through that. So people there are not eating fresh food. Everything has to be canned and stored and all that. Like, can airships solve all these problems? So I think they can. So I think the airships are going to come back.
They're huge though. I'm looking at the Hindenburg compared with like a 737 plane, like a regular passenger plane, and it's like it just engulfs it. It's huge.
Yeah. Yeah. So a ship like the Hindenburg could carry about 100 tons of cargo.
Really?
Which I think is the max of like 4 tractor trailer loads. If you consider a tractor trailer can carry 25 tons, something like that.
And it's filled with hydrogen, not helium.
Yeah. So those original ones, well, helium is the way you should go, right? Because helium extinguishes flame. Hydrogen is flammable. But the Germans were good engineering. Like they were good at engineering. They knew how to.
They weren't very smart. They had a smoker's lounge on there.
That's a good point.
That's a true story.
Yeah, well, the whole reason the Hindenburg went down was because of time travelers, because of St. Elmo's fire. Very rare atmospheric condition that happened that brought the Hindenburg down. Had to do with World War II. I think I mentioned this when talking to Chad, one of our first interviews. But yeah, so, and there was a reason for that. And yeah, I think the bottom line is that airships are going to come back. Sergey Brin of Google has a company he started called LTA, which stands for lighter than air. And he has an airship design they've been working on in this big hangar in Ohio. And they said sometime in this quarter, next quarter, he was going to be showing it to the world. But a lot of people all start to get the same idea at the same time. So, to me, that's going to be a race for airships and how they work and how they move cargo and how they move people, and giving people another option of how to travel.
Yeah, I see something called the Airlander. I'm not sure if that's what it's called, but
yeah, that's in England. Yeah, they have another design for their airships. They call it the Flying Buttocks.
It looks like one. It's like two Zeppelins like side by side kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So they have their own design. Flying Whales is another company. They're a French company. They came up with the design. So, I'm working on some of the designs being like a pilotless design, so that you can move the cargo autonomously and not actually have to have a pilot. You want to have a pilot moving humans, but when you're moving like avocados, Haas avocados from point A to point B, it could probably be automatic,
Yeah.
You don't need to have a human pilot for that.
Did the movie St. Elmo's Fire have anything to do with the Hindenburg, or Do you know anything? Was there any tie there? Because that's the only movie I ever know that was called St. Elmo's Fire.
Yeah, I even forget why it's called St. Elmo's Fire.
Yeah.
But yeah, the St. Elmo's Fire phenomena is, I don't think the movie covered that, but I could be wrong. It's been a lot of time since I've seen it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess the St. Elmo's, the Hindenburg was kind of like the Titanic of the air, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly.
And now they're using helium, you said, right?
Yes.
The hybrid air vehicle is helium.
Yeah, and actually, I believe, like, from the design that I'm coming up with in my mind, there'll be hybrid of helium to bring it to the 0 point, which means you could have a 200-ton airship that's the size of a football field or 2 football fields, depending how much cargo you want to travel, to the 0 point, which means it would be weightless. And then hydrogen can be pulled out of the atmosphere. So is it possible that you put your cargo on, the ship pulls the hydrogen out of the atmosphere, creates hydrogen gas, fills those ballasts, you take off, and then as you want to descend, it releases the hydrogen. Oh, you need more, you need to go back up again? You can pull hydrogen out of the air again. So there's all these different concepts, but I believe they're going to be hybrids of both helium and hydrogen.
There's a big bus airship there. Double wide.
Okay, yeah, the Airlander. Yeah, there's a picture of like one of the inside, like an artist's perception of like luxury travel in an airship.
Hold on. Wait. Look at that picture
is.
right there. Don't do anything. Look at the picture right kind of in the middle below. Yeah, right there. What does that look like?
Looks like somebody's got some issues. It's sponsored by Metamucil. Here's another one. So that was, or depends. It could be depend or depend. Is it depend or depends?
It's singular. It's depend.
It's depend. Now there you go. This looks like a little space cat. That's a pretty cool little picture there. I wish I could blow it up. That's pretty cool.
Which makes like, I don't even want to say it, but there's like these old dirty jokes about little Johnny asks grandma what does grandpa taste like, and she goes, depends.
Oh, there you go, Chris. That's one. That one. Look at this. This is pretty dope.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
yeah, there's the whole concept of what they call picnics, which means that the way a picnic would work is that, let's say there's this remote area of Canada where there's a village, where there's native tribes that live on the land.
Holy shit, like look at this one.
A mining type thing, operation happening. So people might want to do a picnic. You start off in Toronto. You fly out into northern Canada. It takes maybe 3 or 4 hours. The airship lands. It unloads all the fresh foods. It brings in all the mining ore, etc. Meanwhile, if you're part of the picnic, you get off. You have lunch. You kind of see the scenery up there. You interact with the people. You get back on the ship. The ship goes back to Toronto, wherever it was headquartered at. So not only are you moving people for like a little a day adventure, going over beautiful lands and lakes and things that you'd never normally go over and see. Everything's so quiet. So you get the income, as a business from the people wanting to have the picnic experience, and then also having the cargo that is moving, because you always want to have that thing full of cargo, no matter what direction it's going in. You don't want to have an empty airship. So there's all kinds of like really innovative things people are starting to come out with.
All right. So next December, Chris, for your birthday, we're going to rent one of these ships, right? And we're going to take it from mainland China to Tibet. Then we don't have to take any mules. We're gonna go 80 miles an hour up to the top of the Tibetan hills, and then we can meditate there for a few hours and come back. Sound good?
Yeah, why
it's
not?
A write-off for you, right? You can write that off.
Yeah, I don't know about next year, but maybe in 5 years.
So what's next year? You got one plan already for next year?
Yeah, next year is
Ireland.
There's a lot of moving parts to this whole thing. And so what actually I want to do is actually create like a little documentary to show that starting from a dream, is it possible with all the new frequencies coming in that you can actually manifest something, and then explain like how it was manifested. You go from this point to this point to this point. So I want to actually create something that people can watch to see the whole experience.
Or attend.
Or attend.
Or attend.
Or Yeah, or
like an event, maybe.
yeah, then later it would be an event that would review everything, but it could also be something that you watch to be like, how did this person start this company? Start with nothing, and all of a sudden you're Steve Wozniak in Steve Jobs's garage, and you come up with this idea for a personal computer called the app, and you name it the Apple. Like, how does all that like begin to manifest? So I'm trying to because I don't know if anyone's ever, you could watch documentaries, but I don't know if anyone's ever like started something with the intent of creating a documentary right from the start.
You're actually on it right now.
And like working
You're on the channel right now.
Yeah, so maybe we'll like include this in the documentary.
Nice.
I just got a quick trivia question on balloons. There's all kinds of balloons, not just Zeppelins, but what is the highest altitude that any balloon has ever reached in the history of the world?
I'm going to take a wild guess.
Yeah, take a wild guess.
173,000 feet.
Wrong. 173,900. Can you imagine that?
Did you just look that up?
I did.
He was looking at that up.
Okay.
But I think that I didn't even know you can go that high. I thought you hit the firmament before that. But
It's 30 miles up, 5,200 around there.
174,000 feet. It's insane.
That's up there.
And a Zeppelin could go up 14,000 feet, but the Hindenburg usually flew at 600 feet around there.
How high can Led Zeppelin go?
14,000 feet.
Are they too old for that?
So you think that technology, how long before you think it'll be commercial, before we're seeing that in the open?
I'm seeing like predictions, but from people that study the market, they're all saying like within 5 years, we should be able to look up and see a Zeppelin or a dirigible out, up in the sky at some point.
There's also a couple of companies, I should say more than a couple, that are coming out with drone cars. So for about, I think from 90 to about 150,000, you could buy one of these drone cars. I don't know if it seats one person or two. Maybe they'll have ones with two-seaters, but you get in there, you could fly. I think it goes about maybe 60 miles per hour. Maybe you can get a range of a half-hour flight. So bypass the traffic. I'm sure there'll be some wealthy people.
So I got a story to tell you.
That's cool.
True story. When I was in first grade, there was a guy from NASA. I went to school in Orlando area. We could see the space shuttles go up. I saw the space shuttle actually explode outside of my fifth grade classroom during the middle of the day. So first grade, this guy from NASA comes in, and every once in a while they'll have a public speaker, dentist, whatever comes in. One of the kids' fathers worked for NASA, I believe, or per Canaveral. He comes in and says, within the next 5 to 10 years, you'll be able to go from New York to London in 2 hours. And the way that they were doing it is going up above the clouds into the atmosphere and going with the Earth moving. And so now you look at that. This is how old was I? 10 probably. So 35 years later, we're talking here, and we still don't do that. So just keep that in mind.
But David, in his book, The Biggest Secret, David Icke said that the secret government does have that technology. And he talks specifically about George Bush, not W, but the other one, the original George Bush, flew, I believe it was from London to Washington, D.C. in 1 hour. And I think you can go from Australia to Washington, D.C. in just over 90 minutes. Because it flies like 17,000 miles an hour.
Yeah, I mean, I believe they have it. I mean, when you said, Chad, you said commercially, how long till that's available? That's when I was telling the stories, because it's
commercially,
like,
no.
You said commercially that'll happen in the next five to whatever years, and I'm like, well, they could already do it. The question is, do they want it? Will it expose something? Will it put something out there that puts the knowledge at risk? And that was my point: is that they couldn't go into the atmosphere or go through the atmosphere and fly. Where there's no wind resistance, because they'll show something they're not supposed to show, and so they never did it. That's my point. 35 years later, they could have done it probably 5 years later, but it'll never be commercial. It was being built to be commercial, is my point.
But here's the thing, right? So they're saying if you go to Google and you type in the fastest plane, what comes up as the number one answer is the Lockheed SR-71 Blackbird. And I'm very familiar with that aircraft because I used to make model airplanes of it when I was a kid in the mid to late 70s. And that plane was introduced, the first time it ever flew was in 1964, and it was introduced to the public in 1966. So we're talking 50, what is that, 57 years later? Something like that. 56 years later.
My dad actually worked for Martin Marietta, which was Lockheed Martin predecessor in Orlando back at that time.
How is it possible with all the advanced technology that there's not a faster plane than the Blackbird 50, almost 60 years later? That just makes no sense to me.
The plane, and therein lies your secret. You're saying the word plane. It is an aircraft, but it's not considered a plane if it goes faster than that.
Well, they say the X-15 and the X-43A can go faster, but they travel into the atmosphere, high up into, near space.
Well, all these UFO sightings that are definitely governmental planes that we have technology to, those are not considered planes, is my point. Those are considered just aircrafts. The BRT, TRB, whatever it's called. All these things that we were told at the conference were, unidentified flying objects. I mean, they're unidentified for us, but they're definitely identified for the military.
Yeah.
So do you feel, so I imagine everyone on this live stream would say we're not NPC. So do you feel that gives us an advantage? Do you think there's an advantage to not being an NPC? Do you think there's a reason that we're having this conversation versus an NPC conversation?
Yeah, we're players. So players normally find each other. This is not a conversation for NPC.
Have you looked into the Akashic records for our past, or have we all been connected or united at some point in time before?
Maybe there's.
Is this waiting for my reveal, or are you guys on the secret agenda coming? Is this a secret space program?
Anyone
talk about it?
Anyone that's watched this show so far, it's going to get a little crazy from this.
It's getting crazy. From
this point forward. So
here we go.
All right, Chad, sit up in your chair a little bit more. Yeah, there you go. Get a little more into it.
That's what I'm talking about. Let's take this. Take
All right, go ahead, Chris. We're ready, man. We're ready. Go ahead. You're keeping these people waiting. I got 91 subscribers. I had like 19 last time you were here. You've brought me quite a bit of subscriber base.
That's the inverse too.
It's all you.
1991 inverse.
It is 1991. Yep.
Oh, that's interesting. From 19 to 91.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's all that must mean something in gematria. At all?
Oh, it's a prediction, is what it is. I predict Chad's gonna take that class.
Yeah. So I'm gonna say something that, I'll just say something very basic, but some people might want to call this the Time Cop show.
We can do that.
Have you guys ever seen this series called The Umbrella Academy?
Yes.
It's on Netflix.
My wife watches that. Yep.
Okay. All right. Because there's something on there called the Temps Commission. And basically
I'm the monkey, by the way, on my Netflix app. I'm the monkey.
You're the monkey? All right, that's cool.
Yeah, I'm the brains behind the operation. Go ahead.
Okay, exactly.
In my household.
Yeah, so those type of things, like, I believe are, whether it's that concept or other concepts, I don't know. So, like, I feel that, like, all of us here, including people that are watching, have like a connection to watching the timelines and, et cetera, that type of thing, protecting the timelines or helping to make sure certain things manifest. In case something is trying to make it not manifest. But Ken, like, you did give me permission to read your Akashic records. So
yes, I did.
Yeah. So what I want to say before I say anything is that, what I'm going to say is going to be a little bit wild. It's probably going to make, like, some people maybe smile a little bit or be like, wow, like, I didn't ever realize that was a thing. But so depending on where you're at, like, some people don't believe in reincarnation, right? So some people watching the show might be at least on the fence. Like, is that possible that we've had other lives? Like, Is this the only life we've ever had? Even though we have amnesia, like we don't remember. So there'll be a certain amount of the people that like just don't get the whole reincarnation thing, or they're unsure about it. If you feel that way, just think of this as entertainment. Or, you know, if you're just totally not, like if you believe in reincarnation, but you're not sure about other aspects of things that we could have been, and having life in other realms besides this earth realm, again, just think of it kind of like put things to the side and just think of it as basically entertainment, but hopefully maybe a little bit like more consciousness expanding. And then some people are going to be like, oh, of course. So everyone's at different levels, and it's all cool where everyone is. So just view this as information. So one of the things that I do is like, so on my site, I do sessions. I do about 4 a month with people because I just don't have time to do more than that. I'm just so busy. But what I did is, for you, I do a lot of things that I did when I have a session for someone. So I tune into different things about different types of technology that your body has that you may not be aware of. I look into the concept of, have you lived lives as something else besides a human, perhaps a mythical creature, so to speak. So I tune into those types of things. I try to see if you have a connection to any of the archangels, because a lot of people, like the 4 main archangels of Michael, Raphael, Gabriel, Uriel, all the ELs. Some people have, I'll say, played in those games, so to speak, and they have a connection there. And then I ask your records. Actually, I talk to your divine self and make sure that anything that's given to me from the Akashic records are, you know, authorized, that it's okay to share publicly, because I don't want to say anything that would be like, you know, too crazy or whatever. And then I petition the Akashic librarians, the Akashic teachers, the Akashic masters, the Akashic lords. There's a whole sequence of people that are in, or beings that are part of the Akash, including the Akashic guardians. And when I see the Akashic guardians, they're always female and they're angelic. I see like wings on them, and beautiful. They're all beautiful. They all have a sword, so watch out. They are guardians. And they all have the same. Do you ever see Alice in Wonderland, like that blue kind of dress that she wears? They all like have a blue dress on like that. So I don't even know what that's called, but I'm like, okay, that's interesting. So I get the whole team involved. So what I'm gonna say is what I've gotten permission to say, and a lot of it is a lot of this data is actually in your DNA, and your DNA is rendering you in the hologram. It's like projecting what we see as Ken, and a lot of this data is in your skeletal structure, is where a lot of your Akashic records are. And that's why, like, sometimes too, I could tune into people and be like, oh, is this person a Tartarian? Oh, yes, they were. How many lifetimes did they have? Oh, they had so many lifetimes. How many lifetimes were male? How many lifetimes were female? And start to get some kind of a data. Like right now, my data flow is like the old fashioned, like punch cards of computer systems of the 1970s, where you create a program and it's very basic and you put the punch cards in and it comes back with something. So I keep like getting better and better at it. So I'm still like at some people can just go right into it. And for me, it takes a little bit more effort, but I'm getting better and better at it. So first I want to talk to you about your heart technology. There's a few different technologies that you have. One, they were all centered in the heart. So like I'll break things down by the body chakra system. So there's root technology and sacral technology and solar plexus technology, etc. And I was tuning into, you have heart technology. And by the way, I'm just looking at my notes here, that has to do with of time, which is interesting. And there's some other things too that I'm going to have to further define, because when I got the information, I wasn't quite sure what these things meant. But so you have some, like a gift under the Christmas tree that you may not have known about, related to time and the heart and our connection to our divine self is through our heart. So there's some interesting things going on with that. But okay, so now it's going to get a little crazy. So, and by the way, stop
wait
me.
one second, Chris.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I have to go, but I'm gonna tune in to the end of this when it goes up, when Ken puts it up to watch it. But I do apologize. I have a tennis lesson and it's like 25 minutes away. I have to be there at 5.
Okay.
Oh.
Okay. So you got to fly.
Yeah. Sorry about that, guys.
No problem, man. Be
I'm
safe out there.
Yep.
All right. I'll tune in, Chris. It's great seeing you again.
Yeah. Same here, Chad. Great to see you.
All right, guys. Thanks.
All right. See,
Right.
Okay. So Ken, just
he
stop.
didn't want to hear how awesome I am. I know what it is. It's fine. It's okay.
Okay.
I'll tell her later. Don't worry.
Okay. All right. So the first thing I try to tune into is like, oh, does this person have any connection to any mythical creatures? You know, things that, you know, we don't see every day anymore, or they're only in myths. And I was getting that you have a connection to unicorns. You have a connection to thunderbirds. And a thunderbird, if you ever look at a totem pole, a thunderbird is the main bird at the top. Exactly. You have a connection to the phoenix. And then you have a connection, I'm going to see if I could pronounce this correctly, to something I never heard of before. And I'm like, what the heck is this? It's from India, like Indian mythology. It's called a Tekhu Mayavi. It is a were tiger. And I'm like, what the heck is a were tiger? And by the way, I found some links about this. By the way, as I'm speaking, something's trying to talk in my ear right now. So I'm trying to figure out what that is. But a were tiger is like a concept of a werewolf, except the human doesn't transform. They actually take on the characteristics of a tiger in their human body. So, and they could transform back and forth. So I never heard of, I don't know how you feel about tigers, but I never heard of even the concept of a were tiger before. So sometimes the records will kind of like hit you with stuff that it's like, what is this? I have to look this up. So that was the mythical creature part of it, because when we play in the Earth game, we don't always have to be a human. Like, so a lot of people are like, well, I've always been a human. I've always been a human male or whatever. Like, no, it's not how it works. It's just like not how it works. So, and why? To have that experience, because you want to have the experience, like your divine self says, oh, I want to have the experience of being a unicorn and living in a higher dimension and having access to this knowledge and that knowledge, because I could use it later in another part and another lifetime. Also realizing that all of these experiences and lives are actually happening now. That's the other thing too, that's kind of hard, like, because we just know of this now in this linear time, but all these things are all happening at the same time. So any questions thus far?
Nope.
Okay. All right. So then I check to see like if you have any connections to any of the major archangels. And I was getting back that you have a connection with Archangel Michael versus the other ones. So I wanted to mention that to you as well. And then one of the things that I do is I ask if there's any past lives that I could tune into that's okay to, if I do a session, it's okay to tell the person, or now like publicly, if it's okay to say that, because other people will hear this and they'll be like, oh. So I was getting permission for 2 of your past lives to share. So, and this first one I'm going to mention, just like, even before I started reading your records, this one was popping out at me. So it was like, this one was really obvious, but it has to do with, wow, I've got a lot of talking going on in my head right now. This one has to do with Alexander the Great. So I'm like, okay, what's Ken's connection to Alexander the Great? And what it was is you were in his army, but not really like infantry or anything like that. You are what was considered a sonic screamer. And I'm like, a sonic screamer? Like, what does that do? So a sonic screamer could be something like, you hear about those like Maori tribes in New Zealand, and they'll have somebody that gets everyone pumped up, like they have like a loud voice and they get everybody going, like everyone getting ready for battle type of thing. And there's also the concept of it being a defensive weapon where you could disable the enemy by a certain frequency that your voice gave out. And I'm like, wow, sonic, like this kind of stuff is like really like, so I was learning some things related to this. And then I'm like, okay, tell me a little bit more. Like, how long was Ken involved in working with, Alexander the Great and his conquests, his campaigns? And I was getting back 60 years. And I'm like, no, that can't be right. Alexander died when he was 32. Like, how could Ken have been with him for like 60 years? Temporal dilation. Okay, so one thing that people don't realize about Alexander, he was a conqueror of the known world, but for Earth, he was a timeline conqueror. And what that means is that he had contracts with Earth to do certain things, not just in the timeline that he was born into. That's why there's books out there like one's called the Alexander Romance, and there's all the I never heard of the Alexander Romance. It's about all of his exploits. He goes to a land where there's dog people. They're humanoid, but they have dogs' heads.
Features. Yeah.
What's that?
Dog features.
Yeah. He goes to another land where people don't have any heads, but their head is somehow in their chest cavity area. He goes to another land where there's centaurs. He goes to like all these different, like really like things that are not in the historical records. So what happens is that these are considered like the myths of Alexander. So when he was marching his army from wherever they started to the next point, they didn't actually know. To them, they were just marching, but they may have not known they were actually marching into other timelines that needed to be some kind of resolution. Earth was like, you got to solve this problem for me in this timeline. So there was this whole issue of temporal distortion going on. Time was not what it seemed. And I experienced the same thing when I went to Mount Shasta at the end of December. Like I was literally, and the group of people I was with, we were literally seeing timelines change before us. It was like really, really like alters your reality when you begin to like observe things, solidly like that. And you're not the only one. So, so 60 years, like, so is that possible that all of Alexander's experiences lasted more than his lifetime? Well, that's what I was getting. So it doesn't sound logical, but it's just information.
That's what's coming.
Yeah. And then I'm like, what happened to Ken? Okay. Ken, you fell in love. There was one of Alexander's campaigns was to the Amazon women, something like that. And what I was getting is that you fell in love with one of the Amazon women. You wound up like leaving Alexander's army and staying with that woman. You had a child together, a female child. And so you never made it back to Macedonia, but I don't think it mattered for you because you wanted to stay there. So, so that was one of the lives that I was allowed to tune into. It sounds like kind of very fantastic.
Pretty interesting. It sounds pretty cool.
Yeah. And then, so any questions so far from what I've said?
Alexander the Great. When did he live? Oh, he's in BC. Okay. 320 BC ish.
Yeah, I don't recall the exact date of his birth or his death, but that sounds about right.
So how did they, I mean, this is off that topic. How do you think, or have you looked into how they kept track of the years back then? Because they didn't say 323 BC.
Yeah,
Like
no,
what, I mean, what did they call it? Do you
yeah, I
know?
don't.
Are you able to look at that?
I have not like looked at that.
If it,
But you're right. It's not the way we classify it
no,
now.
it can't be.
That was
I mean,
that
there's
was all
tons of
changed.
different
Julian calendar.
tons of different calendars. But okay, go ahead.
Yeah,
I just had that something
yeah.
to throw out there.
But I'm sure the Greeks had their own style that was probably more accurate than the one we have now. But that was the Greek calendar, so to speak.
Okay, so what else I got?
Okay, so
One more life to live.
yeah, one more life to live. Okay, this is okay. From Japan. Okay, Hasakura.
It wasn't the
Tsukunaga.
Philippines. Oh, Hasakura was me.
Yeah,
That was my time. Yeah, that was me.
yeah. So I'm getting that this was a light. This was because if you think about it, we're actors on a stage. All the world's a stage, Shakespeare said. So this was one of the roles that you played. This Japanese explorer, whose name is Hasakura Suinaga, and he was born in 1571, and he died in 1622, aged 50 or 51. And he opened up trade routes for Japan. He actually traveled from Japan to the Philippines to New Spain, which was considered like Acapulco, California, etc. But there's a Wikipedia page about him. Okay. So yeah, so that's someone that you might want to and I
look into.
Yeah, just don't get lost in like whatever, because we've all played different characters, and some light, some dark. We wanted to have this experience or that experience. This guy was pretty cool, obviously.
Samurai.
Yeah, exactly. And I think he also, something happened to his father where his father had to commit that suicide for some reason. So that was like something that he had to overcome because of the shame of the family, so to speak. And he rose to the occasion. And I think in one part here, he visited the Pope and Pope Paul V, New Spain, opened up trade routes. So he was a very...
America. Yeah, he went to America.
Yeah. So I don't know when did Columbus, 1492. So yeah, he came to America, but on the other coast, about 100 or so years after after Columbus.
I took an air balloon.
He took the Hindenburg.
Figured that would be farther. Farther to go on down by the sea.
Yeah.
So how did I die? Did you see that part? How did he die? I should say.
I didn't read. It's just said that he died of an illness a year later after returning to Japan from all of his adventures. So he lived to about the age of 50, which back then was a long life. Yeah. So
anything else popping out that you saw?
No, I mean, yeah, those are the things that I was allowed.
Did you pull this name out of your head, or did you know who this guy was, or did you? I mean, how does this guy's name, or the name, or how did this translate into what you saw?
That's a good question. So the way I do it now is I'm like, okay, first past life I'm allowed to see, or the second past life I'm allowed to see. How long ago was it? And I'll get like something 300 to 400 years ago. Okay, 300 to 400 years ago. Was it a male or a female? It was a male. Male. Okay. Like what category? Like ruler, politician, scientist. Like I go through a different list of different things. And I came to explorer, and it's like I got a solid result with explorer that came into my head. I confirm it with my muscle testing. Okay, explorer, show me a map. So I imagine in my mind a world map, and I feel Japan gets highlighted. So I'm like, Japan? Yes, Japan. So, and then you kind of go through it like, is it someone that's known? Can I find them on the internet? Yes, you can find this person on the internet. So go through a list trying to figure out what it is. And let's say that there's 4 or 5 options, because there's not a lot of Japanese explorers that are spoken about. Came to this one immediately. That's the one. So for me, it's like the information flows, and then I do like a double confirmation with muscle testing or kinesiology. And then when I'm all done, I ask the records, is this true, authentic information? Like, is this something I could share? Am I getting the right information? And I get that. And then when I'm done, I detach with loving detachment. Because I don't want to be connected to your records anymore. And, we don't want to, so that's the way it should be. So, yeah.
That's cool. That's what's up. I'm looking for anything on that page that might trigger something in my brain, whether that crazy symbol that appeared in my Tesla, or something, anything in general, of when his birth date is, how he died, and nothing like that. I don't see anything.
Yeah.
I don't even see a birth date.
Yeah, I don't think they have his birth date, but like again too, like there might be something in the future. You might dream about something.
I actually had a dream probably about 6 months ago, roughly. I'm just guessing, that I was in the back of like some truck, and I was like in the Philippines area. And I don't know where that came from or what the dream was about. I remember the dream was very vivid, but when I woke up, that's all I remembered, is that I was thinking it was in the Philippines, and it was like in the truck, and I was some like laborer, some kind of a laborer. I had done something. I don't know if it was army or if it was just picking something.
Yeah, and that could be completely unrelated to this. And it's like, yeah, because some people are like, do I look like that person, or like, just don't get lost. It's just like it's a character in a script that you played. And
I mean, I could have been an NPC, just being conscious for moments.
No, if you're a player, you're always a player.
Interesting.
Yeah, you're always a player.
Play on player.
Play on player.
You may not have awoken.
The Amazon woman thought I was a player. That's for sure.
Yeah, the Amazon woman wanted those sonic screaming genetics.
Oh yeah. Oh. Yeah, we both screamed together. Okay, that's cool, man. I appreciate that, Chris. Is there anything else that's to be known, or that was it pretty much?
Yeah, I wrote down some other things. I'm still trying to figure out like what they mean. Like one of the things, like one of your secret skills is called higher self ultra instinct. And I'm not sure what that actually means, to have an ultra instinct. So I'm going to try to like tune into that a little bit more. When I find out, I'll send you a note and let you know.
Okay, cool. I appreciate that. What you think of that story, MJ?
That's cool.
Or the reading.
I mean, that's cool to actually get it down to a person that actually got some historical records of. I think that's pretty cool. So yeah, that's interesting. But just like you said, it wouldn't, not to get lost into it. Maybe there's something, or like you say, maybe something in the future. You never know what this could trigger. But it's definitely interesting to hear about your past performances.
Yeah, I think it's interesting as far as my personality is concerned. My intrinsic personality, like my traits, that I was a wanderer and an explorer, kind of in both of those ones that were shown to you, because I feel like I woke out of the womb as soon as I could walk. I was like, I'm gone. I don't need to be by anybody's side. I'm by myself. I'm good. I felt comfortable in doing that, whereas I see some of my kids are not comfortable in that realm.
Yeah, and they say too, like the whole explorer thing, like, why are people driven to explore? And I believe that was one of the ways that the Earth game could be won. Like if we all went out and explored every corner of the world, it would set something in motion so that could automatically like
We can render it.
So I believe that the whole exploration thing for a lot of us is like intrinsic, like you said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I just I emailed today. I emailed Ola Walney a few times, who was going to be on the show and talk with us in a couple weeks, about 2 weeks. And I asked her, if I could get a reading, and she said yes. So going to get a astrological reading from her as well. I'm not sure how much that entails, but she said between an hour and a half. So that's pretty cool. I'm looking forward to that as well.
For related to astrology.
Related to astrology, I think that she doesn't consider herself an astrologist, so it's not going to be just founded in that. It's going to be whatever comes to her as far as numerology is concerned. My astrological chart. She actually said something really interesting. I believe that she's the one that I got this from. If I'm incorrect, Ola, and you're watching this, I apologize, but I believe she said that when she was reading Rob of the Typical Skeptic podcast, he asked a question about how that is inferred into the DNA and stuff, and when you're born, the day, the time, the year, those kind of things. And she said it's a DNA coding, kind of like a code of when you come into this world, it's like your code's imprinted with that information on it. So it's like time, date, birth, all that stuff is like your genetic code, and you're able to look into that.
Yeah, and even like to go one step further, like that's if you're reading a script, like if you're an actor, like date of birth, blah blah blah. Okay, I'm going to accept this script. So
right, yeah,
like the date of birth and your script name, your name on your birth certificate is actually your script name.
Interesting.
Playing that character. So
cool.
Very interesting.
I told you the show's gonna go a little bit crazy. We went off the rails.
It didn't go that crazy.
No.
It didn't go that crazy. It was cool. The bird, the Thunderbird is pretty cool. I mean, that was probably the most off script, or the screaming, the Sonic Screamer. But I mean, that's not crazy. That's cool. Did you know about the Sonic Screamer before doing this, or
I've heard of the well, you know what? There's like Marvel, like there's superhero stuff. Like some people have that like ability. So I kind of know like about that. Where they could project their voice, or like those tribes in New Zealand, they get everyone else all worked out just by how they use their voice and their body motions. And if you're going to like inspire an army to go out and fight and be strong, you want something like that, as well as shouting commands and orders. So how do you, like the infantry's here, the cavalry's here, whatever, like how do you get all the information to be disseminated to everyone? Like, could someone with a powerful sonic voice be able to give people like to know where they're supposed to be and where they're supposed to move, and if they should retreat or go forward? Like, so all those things are like important for movements of a military campaign.
Or vibration and frequency too. I mean, obviously my wife always says your voice it carries, so I'll say something to her like right next to me, and she'll be like, that is really loud. I'm like, I barely even whispered it. She's like, your voice carries, they're going to hear you. I'm like, whatever.
Yeah. So that could be like a leftover sign of that other life that you had. Yeah. And it's within you. It's within your DNA. If that ever got activated, you would probably be able to have that ability again, actually.
Cool.
Yeah.
I wonder if I should even post this before I get the other reading from Ola, and see if there's anything correlated or just, intertwined there.
Yeah. I who knows? But that's up to you. When's your reading?
I just verified it today, so I don't have a date, but whenever she's free.
Okay.
So yeah, anything else you got going on in your life that's popping out of the ordinary you want to bring up, talk about?
I would probably say we kind of already spoke for a while. But yeah, there's always things to talk about. I'll just mention really briefly. I redesigned my website, so quantumbusinessman.com. If anybody visits that, you'll see a new look. You'll see that I'm doing this trip to Ireland. We talked about this before, about that Soul Shard library.
Yep.
So I've got that information up on my webpage. We're trying to get just a very small group to go, like 10 people or less. So if you feel called for that, let me know. We're starting to, I think next week we're going to have a Zoom call with some of the people that are interested to start to plan out the itinerary. Because we're not just going to go to that Soul Shard library, but we're going to go to some other places of power within Ireland with the group based upon what's going to give us the most upgrades, et cetera, what's best for the group. And then all of us have a connection. Whoever winds up going will be connected somehow. So, figuring out what that connection is and how we can all help each other. Higher self trading.
Nice. There's your website for people who want to get in contact with the quantum businessman. And are you open to doing those kind of Akashic record readings for people? I mean, can they contact you and pay for that? Is that a service that you're willing to provide to tap into? Yeah. Awesome.
There's a thing at the top called sessions. And if you were to go into sessions, you'll see my calendar. I just opened 3 for March and they all got filled. So I'm going to be opening some more at the end of March and into April. But like I said, I only do 1 a week. That's all I have time for. And I usually go into a little bit more detail than I did with you. So.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, I appreciate it. Always fun talking to you. We're going to get some more conversations going. We can figure out how much time we got and what we can talk about. Because definitely talking with people who are like-minded and interested in the same stuff helps you put things into perspective. So. Yeah,
and there's always Mandela effects that keep popping up. They won't stop.
Oh, we got to do a special episode on that about predicting Mandela effects and I'm going to try to bring some things up. When would you be available again for like 30, 40 minutes? Just not a 2-hour conversation, but I want to document some coming and I want to bring up on the screen. Like I want to show some of them. I want to have some famous quotes. And if it changes, we're going to be Mandela famous.
Yeah, so you're saying like predicting Mandela effect.
Absolutely. Yeah, I want famous quotes, famous lines, famous quotes, famous things that I want to put them onto a video, and I want to see if the videos change or because obviously there's a lot of famous quotes out there that have been changed and moved and things like that. I want to see if we can hit 1 or 2 of them, put 20 of them down and see if we can hit 1 or 2 of them in the next year or 2, and just leave it there time stamped.
Exactly. Yeah. That's always interesting too, because when you move into another timeline, will that data survive or not? So if you're in another timeline, but it's all cool. It's definitely an experiment worthwhile trying.
Well, either way, we'll remember it. So, I mean, even if
we'll remember it, you're right.
Yeah, we'll remember it. I mean, into this timeline. So can't change up. You can MK Ultra us and maybe we're putting it out there to get that happen. But if you're going to do that, man, give me some good memories. If the government's listening, give me some good ones.
Right.
So anything else you want to plug while you're here, Chris?
No.
91 subscribers?
Maybe by the time you post this, I'll have my Act 8 of my Symphony of Realities available. I'm going to probably do what I call a mini-sode before that, where I talk about the Star Wars Mandela Effect. I go into that a little bit. So yeah, for people that watch my channel, I should have a couple of videos posted in the next week or so.
Awesome. And I'll get this to you. I'm not leaving town tomorrow. I'm not leaving till I think probably Wednesday for a couple of days, but I'll be able to get this to you. I'm not leaving. So I'll get it to you.
Oh,
One
last thing. If any of your viewers know, like, because I've been reaching out to like Jason at RKX, like I would love to like talk about Mandela effects like on another level with him, like tuning into them and all that kind of stuff. I've been sending him messages and stuff, and I know the guy's like super busy and he doesn't.
I will try to get a hold of Matt. If you watch his show, Matt seems to be the one that's holding down his traffic. Jason's doing a lot of the research, and I think Matt. I want to say Matt's available, so I haven't contacted him. I plan on it, but at this time, I know Jason's locked into doing some things, and Matt might be more available than Jason is. So
yeah. And I know Jason's like super busy with all of this stuff.
But they all seem super cool. I mean, I haven't met them yet, but they definitely seem really, really cool and approachable. And they're just trying to find truth too, man. They're on the same wavelength.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and he has his approach, books, and I have my approach, Akashic Records, and can the two jive, and can they coexist together, and can I add more to the story of what I say, and can he add more to the story of
what would be really, really cool is, and I'm a manifest this so I can see what happens. But if you're able to get a hold of Matt and look into some of the things that Jason has talked about or is in his possibilities, but maybe you haven't seen it. So I want to see if those are interconnected too, as far as history is concerned, because that would be an unbelievable episode if you could connect those things where Jason may not have said something, or maybe it connects something that he's lost or he missed. That would be really cool.
Yeah, and there are two things. Like he's got one video where he talks about the Tunguska event that happened over Russia.
Mm-hmm.
And, so I have things to add to that that's related to another event that happened over Maine called the Purple Fire Snowstorm that's related to that. So, and then I think Jason had an episode 100 where he talks about like who the real Jesus could be. Because we know the Council of Nicaea, like, set the tone and what the scriptures are in the New Testament. But was there someone else's life that Jesus was based off of that didn't die the way the church said that he died, that went on and had like children? Like was there a character from Galilee who his woman was Mary, and they had 8 children together and performed miracles? So when he had that one video, I was like trying to tune into what he was saying, and I'm like, oh my God, Jason's onto something here. So
he's on to a lot of things.
Yeah.
And I mean, he basically says that he's Jesus, the he of Jesus. His scriptures and stories have been told through Sumerian times over and over again. Like the stories are legitimately true, but they're not of that time and place. They're regurgitated stories, retold stories. So that's fascinating in itself. That knowledge is passed down. However, it's taken out. The hidden meanings behind a lot of these things.
Yeah, like in ancient Egypt, like Horus and Isis and Horus being born, like there's like all these similar. Yeah, I've heard those things as well. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. The baby going down the river and getting picked up. Yep. All those.
Yeah.
All those things are stories told over and over again with different characters, different leads.
Right.
Yep. Gonna be interesting to see what happens, but Chris, appreciate it. Love talking to you, man, and we'll see if we can get you back on in the next couple weeks, the next 2 weeks or so, if you're free to talk for 30, 45 minutes about predicting. Once you get a few of them together and you want to predict them, we'll just jump on real quick, no matter what time and date it is, and we'll record it and put it up there.
Yeah, because I'm trying to manifest the passenger pigeon coming back.
Okay, Tesla.
So not just like we could go to movie quotes, and then we could go to animals that have gone extinct. Like, is there a timeline out there where the passenger pigeon, which used to be in the hundreds of millions, never went extinct?
Have you ever been to Venice?
No, but I want to go to Venice.
Oh my God! I don't know if they're passenger pigeons, but in St. Mark's Square, I think it is. There's pigeons all. I got a video. I'll send it to you. I got videos of when I was back there in 2000 and I don't even know 5, whatever year I went there in with my sister, and me and my wife just went. But the pigeons were not crazy like they were the first time I went. I mean, pigeons, thousands and thousands of pigeons, just all over the place, flying next to your head at like, 40 miles an hour. You're like, how do they not hit anything?
St. Mark's Square
in Venice.
It's one of the places I want to go to. Did you go into the church that's there?
I did. Yep.
Because did you see where like St. Mark is supposed to be, like not buried, but like a crypt or something?
To be honest, I don't remember. And they don't let you take pictures either in there. I don't believe most of these churches, you can't take your cameras.
There's something about the body that's in there that may not be St. Mark, which is really interesting. It might be someone else completely. So, but that's one of the reasons I want to go to Venice. I want to go to St. Mark's Square. And I think it's interesting and synchronistic that you just said that.
You got to go to Rome too. I mean, Rome has.
I've been to Rome.
Some of the most. Okay, so you've seen the overlay, and you've seen the I don't know if it's the grave or the tomb of Jesus. something's in Rome. They have something in Rome relating to Jesus, but I'm not sure. I forgot what it is. I'll have to look it up.
Yeah, I did like a lot of the sightseeing stuff, but yeah, I don't remember that. But there's a lot to see in Rome. There's a lot to
It's
see.
pretty cool. Yeah,
a very old city.
So yeah, maybe that just kicks something off that you'll have to go see something.
Yeah, because when you mentioned St. Mark's, there's that. I don't want to go into details, but there's actually an Alexander connection to that.
Yeah, I remember that.
Do you?
My past life. Yeah. No, I'm just kidding. But I'll see if I can dream about it. See if I can meditate it and astral travel and go try to find it.
I think that's the next phase, as our dreams are going to be more powerful and more lucid with all this energy coming in. So just be prepared for people remembering more of their dreams, and the dreams just becoming more of like making us aware of different things that we're supposed to start to become aware of. So I think dreams are going to become very powerful.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what happens. We're trying to manifest quite a bit, aren't we, MJ?
Yeah. Got a lot of irons in the fire.
Yeah, it's gonna pop off pretty soon. But appreciate all y'all watching, and go check out Chris and his website, quantumbusinessman.com, and we'll have him back on here predicting some cool things pretty soon. So we'll look forward to that. But peace. Thanks for showing up.
You're welcome.
Peace out.
Yeah.